He's on Zoom.
And several is up there. Miss Maggie. Come here. Oh, that's very
So we'll Zoom and YouTube,
Yep.
is that normal,
No.
or both?
That's what they told me to do. All right, we are live on YouTube and recording.
I think I have to wait the 2 minutes though.
Yep, sometimes YouTube takes a while to
Oh, yeah.
get on. Just like to warn you so no one says something they don't want everyone to hear.
I gotta go get it. Oh, it's. Yeah, very.
When do you see you go middle of June?
No, July, it'll have to be the 21st. The 14th is. I was gonna do a little more searching tonight to see if I could find an earlier date.
And when's the baby Jack do?
June 8th-ish. around there.
Okay, so it's really.
Yeah, it gives them time. I don't want to, baby's born and,
Party.
right, yeah, give them a chance to settle in and,
Yeah, they put a smile on my face, the name.
yeah, me too. Actually, it made me cry, but
No, it just gave me a smile.
yeah,
But
that's good. Yeah, she can be.
we'll probably pull the trigger this summer and get a thought.
Okay, I'm gonna call the Budget Committee to order. And would one of those of you in attendance lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I feel weird.
Still need to stand though, Walter.
I'm standing.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Like of the United States of America.
to the republic which stands
One nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Maggie, you're doing a good job.
Good job.
Okay, any adjustments to the agenda? Which is one item with two components. Hearing none. Did everybody get a copy of the articles that the final copy, I guess, that was crafted last night and sent out around noontime today?
No.
I've got a
I'll copy you one,
copy.
Penny.
Was more than one sent today?
Just one.
Oh, then I have it.
Okay.
Sure. I did read it though when you sent it.
And then my iPad died during Super Wednesday. And I might not be able to bring it up in here. But I did read it.
So Jeff, you want to bring us up to speed from the select board's perspective on this? And you're muted. You're muted, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm on a new computer, so I was trying to find where the button was.
Sorry.
Yeah, after a significant discussion last night, we did finally decide how we were going to word it. I'm not sure if the version you've got right now is the final version. There's might be a little more wordsmithing to it. But the bottom line was on the Smith property, we are the select board is recommending the $50,000. On the other property, the Klein property, we are just recommending that we purchase it, and we are not recommending the amount that's embedded in it. And partially because there's a lot of discussion on whether or not the the appraised value is the right number. But it's a good place to start.
Jeff, you mean the assessed?
Yeah, the assessed value. Yeah, not the appraised value.
On it, it says, to see if the town will authorize the select board to expend up to 12.5. That's not supposed to be there?
No, that is supposed to be there, but when it get at the bottom, it'll say select board recommends purchase.
Okay, okay.
On the other one, it'll have $50,000 in the article, and it'll say select board recommends purchase for $50,000.
And in both cases, the funding is from undesignated funds.
Correct. We've also put in the language that we're probably almost for sure going to try to get some grants for it. And there are a lot of conservation type of grants for this type of property. I don't think we're going to end up spending a penny on it. But in the case that we don't, then it would come from surplus.
Board members, questions, comments, and
Yeah, Jeff, I'm not quite clear on the Article 6 one, because it says authorize the select board to expend up to 12.5. You wouldn't be able to spend more than that then, right? You're thinking you might be able to get it for less?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know if we would be able to get it for less. I'm just not convinced that 12.5 is the right amount.
And part of the negotiation is you just don't want to put that card on the table saying that you're going to give them 12.5.
Right, but it's also to let the town know, because the town can vote in this type of an article. They can vote to lower that amount.
Yeah.
But they can't vote to raise that amount. They can only lower it.
For the cap.
Right, and so it becomes a cap for the select board when they're negotiating.
Be a good idea to put assessed value in parentheses after that.
No, we wanted to actually kind of avoid that because of the other article where we're not paying anywhere close to assessed value. So I didn't want to point, we didn't really want to point out the glaring difference between the two.
And the property owner offers it over 30. So it's very possible he might say no way, no how. And
That it is a possibility. He may not be willing to go even at the 12.5.
Sandra, any perspective on this from the Conservation Commission? And then I have a question for both you and Jeff.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there's something funny happening on my screen. Well, the Conservation Commission really, we had been working, ironically, on being able to recommend that the town buy the Jeff Smith property when the Klein thing burst onto everybody's radar. We think it's a really valuable piece. We do think there's ways to find money, as Jeff says, to pay for at least some of it. It's just sort of ahead of our timetable, but these things happen and it's a great opportunity. I also listened this morning on YouTube, which, by the way, the sound quality is so frustrating, but to the select board meeting last night. And I heard Walter's concern about, well, we've got a lot of things as in this town that we need to spend money on, like housing, and what are we going to forego if we get this? But I would be hopeful that we could find money for housing and we can find money for this, I think, terrific opportunity to have some open space preserved in the town.
Yeah, well, I mean, both conservation land and affordable housing or expanding housing opportunities are part of the comprehensive plan. So, that's why I'm saying, why is one happening at a large expense at exclusion of the other? But there are no how affordable housing opportunities around that I'm aware of. I am aware of how restrictive the housing is, and it's caused us to lose at least one resident that I'm aware of, and probably prohibits migration in. So that was why I raised the issue. But Jeff, the one thing that you and John and Sue or whatever ought to explore, the ordinance that created or recreated the Conservation Commission says that when the Conservation Commission wants to buy land, that they have to visit the planning board beforehand. Now, as I looked at that, I said, well, since the Smith offer is made to the town, it doesn't seem like that ordinance rule would be in effect, or at least it works around it. But the language of that is so squishy that I think somebody ought to go revisit it.
Yeah, I will definitely do that, because I don't recall that being a provision in there, and it's outside of the normal planning board responsibilities. Now, there may be a requirement, I can foresee a requirement that if the commission is planning on doing something specific with it, it may require planning board approval, just like anybody else would have to go to the planning board for approval. And it would be a municipal use or a conservation use. And I think both of those are covered independently in the ordinance. So that may be what it's speaking of, is maybe if they put in trails, they'll probably have to go to the planning board. I'd have to read it. But I honestly don't remember that provision being in there, but I think it's a CYA in case there is development that requires planning board action, but to purchase land would not require planning board action.
Well, and the Conservation Commission would not be purchasing land.
That's also in there, that the purchasing of land is still the responsibility of the town.
Right, but the language, I should have printed the hard copy. The language of that particular provision says the planning board or the Conservation Commission acting on behalf of the town. I then interpreted that as, well, of course they're acting on behalf of the town, but the fact is the select board and the town are the ones that take the action. So anyhow, the language I think is squishy and probably should be looked at if we're going to continue.
I agree 100%.
We would never act. It would always be, we'd make a recommendation to the select board to recommend to the town.
What I'd encourage you to do is put your lawyer glasses on, Sandra, and go look at that.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm happy to do that. I'm just saying we would never dream of it.
And then have Kristen do the same thing. Okay. Any more questions for Jeff? Or Jeff, any? I have actually two more. This is a significant amount of surplus that we'd be expending. You still feel comfortable that we're going to emerge on July 1st in very good shape?
Yeah, and I would also add, I think I've already told you, Walter, but I was very pleasantly surprised. I just happened to have some time last week, I guess, and I watched the RSU 13 budget committee's perusals of the upcoming budget. And I was actually shocked to hear that they're targeting a 3% increase across the board. And so I heard that in the beginning, and then I followed through to the last one that they had online at the time, and they're sticking with it. The budget I think that's going to be presented is going to be significantly less than I had anticipated. I had progged a 7% increase, and I think it might be a 3.5% increase. Now, just to say, that's overall for the RSU 13 because of the differences in our assessed values, ours has gone up higher than other towns in RSU 13. And we have had an increase of students over the other towns. So our share may go up something more than what it goes up overall, but it's still going to be significantly lower. And that gives us a lot of weight. A 3% or even a 2% decrease in my calculations is a significant amount on the RSU 13's budget. So that gives us a lot of wiggle room. So I'm feeling more and more confident that we're going to be able to either use surplus or not use surplus because of how good the RSU 13's budget's going to be. Good as so yeah, good as can be expected, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay, all right, so let's take some actions. So I think that we'll do each article separately, and Article 6, I think the form of the motion should be, I move that the Budget Committee recommend that the town accept Article 6 as written, unless you think that as written reduces wiggle room, Jeff.
I think you should either have a number or not have a number. And the only reason is on these, it's probably pretty clear, but for future ones or for other ones, there may be a time where you want to recommend a number that's different from what's in the article, which happened a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact. The Budget Committee recommended something different from what the Select Board and what was in the article.
Okay, so then the motion should be that the Budget Committee recommends purchase for Article 6, same as the Select Board.
Unless you want to recommend that number, but yes, yeah, recommend purchase, or if you want to recommend that number, then you slide that number in there as well.
Right. I don't mean
like we did on the second one.
right. I don't mean to be dictatorial.
Yeah, I got you.
So I need a motion and a second.
I move that the Budget Committee recommend purchase.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any just further discussion or any discussion of the motion? Hearing none. Linda, I have to do a roll call.
Forget it. Yes.
Bob,
Yes,
Penny,
Nay,
was that a nay?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it was a no.
Sandra,
Yes.
I'm conflicted. And the reason, after this discussion last night, the only reason I'm conflicted is I'm voting to purchase something that I haven't seen, which I have never done in my life. But I'm gonna vote yes anyway. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4 to 1. So passage. Article 7, is there a motion regarding Article 7? I'll leave that open to the board members to structure the motion this time. No motion.
yeah, I guess I'll make the motion. I'll make a motion for the Budget Committee recommends spending up to $50,000 to purchase whatever the language is on that parcel of property.
So I think all you'd have to say is Budget Committee recommends purchase at up to 50,000.
Right?
That sound right?
Can you agree with that, Rob? Sandra putting words in your mouth?
No, I thought that's what I said, but I guess I didn't quite say it that way.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion?
Yeah, well, I would have spoken up the first time, but you didn't. Don't think, I the reason I am voting no is because I don't think the budget committee should have a recommendation in this case where it's all gonna come from surplus. I think it's up to the townspeople to decide, and that's why.
Could somebody repeat it? I couldn't hear.
Yeah, Penny says that she doesn't think that the budget, that this, without, that the budget committee should not recommend this, only the town should, because
Only the select board should?
it's coming from surplus.
Penny, did you say the select board or the townspeople? You said the townspeople,
No,
right?
the townspeople will vote to
Yeah.
decide this.
Mhm.
Therefore, I'd rather see the budget committee have no recommendation in this, in these, both these questions. But the select board makes their decisions, and the budget committee makes their decisions, and that's what goes in the warrant. And then the people are the ultimate answer here. They vote at town meeting.
I mean, if we recommend it or not, they still vote on it,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
I guess, I understand what you're saying, Penny, but I guess my thought on this is that at least there's a few more people that have actually looked at all the possibility, the question is not, I'm not saying that the select board isn't qualified to look at it, it's just a few more people have actually, and one of the people being somebody on the conservation committee as well. That's just how
Yeah, I want to act as a budget committee member, not the conservation commission, not what my opinion as a private citizen might be. And that's my position, and I'm perfectly
No,
happy
it's-
to be the lone naysayer. That's
I.
been there before.
Look at it that way. That's all.
I don't think that's a naysayer kind of thing at all. I think it's a legitimate point. So Bob moved, and did Linda second?
For the motion, yes.
Okay. I just have one request, and I can't craft this as an amendment to the motion, because and that is, I think this entire issue, and this is another one of the things that I raised last night. At most 15 people in town know about this. I think that 100 people are going to find out about it for the first time at town meeting if something isn't done about publicizing this. And I would encourage the Conservation Commission to hold one or more public forums, and of course run the risk that only 5 people will show up at each. But I think you would be remiss in not doing that. So I'm planting that seed, Sandra, for you to have your very active committee reach out and do something about telling people why this is good and why it's important, and what's it all about.
Well, I'd agree, but I also, and I was going to, after this meeting, and depending how things turned out, get the permission of the select board to send a memo to the whole listserv and post it on the website, basically the same as the memo that it's moved a little beyond, but with all the information that or the relevant information that we had in our memo, making the recommendation to the select board. So that would get a significantly larger number of people in the picture before town meeting. And it's more likely to reach them, I'm sad to say, than a public forum, which, as we all know, can bring out 5 people. I mean, I'm happy to do both, but I would think getting it on the listserv might reach more.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Either of you realize that the select board will hold an informational meeting on May 30th to deal with this matter and a couple other matters that will be on the warrant. And will the warrant be in their hands at that point? The town report?
The draft one will be, because it will be it will be in the town report by then.
And people can read that report to see what's coming.
When does the town report get out?
I don't know exactly when it will be out. It depends on when I get it to her. But
I,
we're only
May
gonna.
1st, Terry,
I'm
without
supposed to have
fail.
all the- I'm supposed to, Penny, I'm supposed to have all the information by the 1st. And then we have to put it all together. But last year we put just a draft of the town warrant in the town report. So that will be ready by the 30th, the draft that we could let people look at. Correct,
And-
Jeff?
oh, but you're really up against your publication deadline, right? I mean, stuff to printer deadline. So we probably don't have time to add something to that, with a cross reference to the warrant article saying, here's some background. I don't think, we probably don't have time to do that.
Well, we're gonna have a public hearing on this on May 30th.
Oh, okay, I wasn't aware of that when I.
Okay, well, that's certainly time to get word out.
Yeah, I bring this up because I've been down the "you never told me this" road a couple of times.
Right.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and I'll call the roll. Penny,
Nay. No.
Bob,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes,
Sandra,
Yes.
Walter, yes,
Yes.
he said. Sworn once again. All right.
Can I make a couple comments?
Sure.
If you got time. I agree with Penny's thought process on this. Technically, since it is not coming from any budget item that is going to create additional taxes, technically we could omit the budget committee's recommendation on this altogether. But I think that it would be not having your recommendation on there at all, period. Because if you put in there, the budget committee has no recommendation, that implies a negative to whoever's going to be reading it. And in this case, it's just like not having a recommendation on all the other articles we've got in there that are non-budgetary associated. I think I think John and I were thinking that this was a budget item, but I agree with Penny. You can easily make her argument successfully that it's not a budget committee issue. Having said that, you've already voted on it, and I think it's a good idea because it does add some credence to the articles when it goes before the town. So I wouldn't want you to back away from that now. I'm just saying that I think I do kind of agree with Penny's point on this. And matter of fact, John made the same point last night when I was recommending that the Conservation Commission would have a line on there saying the Conservation Commission recommends. And he said, no, we don't normally do that. We just do the budget committee. That's the select board and budget committee. Those are the only ones that recommend on budgetary items. And so I backed away from having the Conservation Commission included on there. So I agree with Penny, but I think that train's already left the station, and in this case, we'd be sending a negative signal if we put on there that the budget committee makes no recommendation. Yeah, and the other thing is, I do think that the Conservation Commission should be deeply involved in doing advanced publicity, putting out a letter similar to the other one prior to the 30th meeting. And I would hope that you are deeply involved in the meeting on the 30th in the presentation, as well as at town meeting. I anticipate either some paperwork, some slides, a handout, or maybe even a couple-minute presentation from the Conservation Commission.
Or maybe several of those.
Yes.
Be wonderful to get an aerial view of the property.
Hmm.
Well, that's not cheap.
Let you know.
Yeah.
I might know somebody who has a drone that might be able to do
Oh.
that.
Okay. Lost my train of thought. Oh, I know, and I think, I know you'll do this 100 times, Jeff, but 101 times is good as well. And that's to emphasize to people that this has absolutely no impact on anybody else's 2023, 24 tax bill.
Right.
It is coming from undesignated funds, and I've already had to answer that question once today, so. It was the first thing that this particular individual thought of based on what he heard about last night, so.
So was somebody at last night's meeting?
No, it was somebody who wasn't at last night's meeting.
Oh,
And said,
okay.
What's the impact on taxes? And I said, none.
Yeah, and just to be clear, my intention is to try to get as much of this funded through grants and other
Mhm.
methods. And I would be surprised if any or much of it comes from surplus anyway.
Okay, any items not on the agenda that we want to cover? And Penny, next year when we gather, we should talk about the philosophy of yes or no with regards to a non-budgetary funding article, because you're making a very good point. I think that a prior regime started that because and my early experience when I was on the budget committee was that we only did stuff on the budget. And then all of a sudden other funding articles came up, and to me that made sense. But then again, I'm hearing your argument and it's very compelling.
Thank you.
Wasn't enough to make me vote no, though. even though I walked in last night with my no vote and guns blazing. All right, without objection, I will adjourn the meeting. And thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks all. Bye.
Night.
Right.